सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। We'll start from the topic nature protects.
Nature protects. All beings except humans seem to be guided, directed, disciplined, in effect, protected by nature. Their lifestyle, their waking and sleeping, action and inaction, eating and mating habits seem to be properly streamlined. As a result, they are perfectly fit and healthy. The documentary presentation of animals makes it clear that no carnivore or herbivore is either overweight or underweight. Only human beings are either obese or emaciated due to their indisciplined, indulgent behavioral pattern. Besides these physical defects, humans suffer largely from mental distress, depression as well. It gives one the impression that human beings have been neglected without any form of guidance from nature. But this is not true. Ironically, nature has treated a human as the chef d'oeuvre of creation by providing him with the wondrous equipment, intellect. With the use of the intellect, a human being can live an ideal life and attain the state of absolute perfection, which no other creature can aspire to reach. Thus, you find nature protecting and aiding all beings in the world to live their lives properly. In the case of animals, directly, while humans are protected indirectly by providing them with the intellect. But humans the world over have completely neglected to build and use this essential equipment. As a result, their lives are driven by their minds only to be ridden with sorrow and suffering. The younger generation cannot afford to lead themselves to such predicament. The world has reached a pathetic state. The intellect has fallen to such a low level that ungoverned minds are destroying the human race. There is no program designed for developing the intellect, either by parents or guardians, schools or universities. Nor have the governing bodies recognized this state of urgency created by humans themselves. It is therefore of importance to prepare a program by international bodies, governments, and educational authorities to build, to develop, to resurrect the fallen intellect in human beings. The real problem facing the world today is that people believe all is well. Though steeped in ignorance, they claim to know everything. With the lack of intellect, their shutters of learning remain closed. Joss Billings drives home this point succinctly. The trouble with most folks is not so much their ignorance as their knowing so many things which ain't so. The crux of the problem, however, is the difficulty in distinguishing the intellect from sheer intelligence. The outcome of such ignorance is proving disastrous, even fatal to humanity. People with poor intellect lack reason and proper judgment. Consequently, they lead themselves to irrational conclusions and jeopardize their lives. Yet, believe they're all right. Jane Taylor, in her poem The Pond, highlights the dire consequences of functioning with a weak intellect. The poem describes a chick watching the ducks swimming in a pond. The chick craves to join in their fun and frolic. Her mother had warned her never to get into the water, but the chick tried to reason with her little intellect as to why she should not venture into the pond despite her mother's cautions. With her poor reasoning, the only difference she could find was in the shapes of their beaks. That her beak was pointed and the duck's beak was round, and found that to be no reason for drowning. She thought she could swim as well as the ducks. So she plunged into the water and realized too late that her mother's advice was true. She struggled for a while, but slowly sank to the bottom and died. The poem. The pond. There was a round pond and a pretty pond too. About it white daisies and violets grew, and dark weeping willows that stood to the ground dipped in their long branches and shaded it round. A party of ducks to this pond would repair to feast on the green water weeds that grew there. Indeed, the assembly would frequently meet to discuss their affairs in this pleasant retreat. Now the subjects on which they were wont to converse, I'm sorry I cannot include in verse, for though I've oft listened in the hopes of discerning, I won't. It's a matter that baffles my learning. One day, a young chicken that lived thereabout stood watching to see the ducks pass in and out, now standing tail upward, now diving below. She thought of all the things she should like to do so. So the poor silly chick was determined to try. She thought 'twas as easy to swim as to fly, though her mother had told her she must not go near. She foolishly thought there was nothing to fear. My feet, wings, and feathers, for aught that I see, as good as a duck's are for swimming, said she. Though my beak is pointed as their beaks are round, is that any reason that I should be drowned? Why should I not swim then as well as a duck? I think I shall venture and even try my luck. For, said she, spite of all that her mother had taught her, I am really remarkably fond of the water. So, in this poor, ignorant animal flew, but soon found her dear mother's cautions were true. She splashed and she dashed and she turned herself round and heartily wished herself safe on the ground. But now 'twas too late to begin to repent. The harder she struggled, the deeper she went. And when every effort had vainly been tried, she slowly sunk down to the bottom and died. The ducks, I perceived, began loudly to quack when they saw the poor fowl floating dead on its back, and by their grave gestures and looks, 'twas apparent they discoursed on the sin of not minding a parent. Jane Taylor. The poem should help you realize your obligation is to understand the vital role of the intellect in conducting your life, and therefore to develop, strengthen it fully.
So, the attachment is the weakness of the senses and of the mind. So, the human being, two instruments, the senses and the mind, though it is provided by nature, though it is part of the nature, but still it brings a downfall. If it is provided by nature, then it should be perfect. Why does any human being have to make an effort to do anything about it? This is where he says the nature protects, as in when all other species are, there is an external intellect managing them, as it were. In the case of a human being, one has to manage oneself. Wherever there is attachment, it means that person has lost the knowledge of how to manage oneself. And attachment could be in terms of, as we saw previously, in terms of the actions, in terms of emotions, in terms of preconceived notions and ideas. Attachment can be to any one of these. It can be to the senses. It can be to the emotions. Mind here, in this Holocaust of attachment, we mean emotions. And the third one is the preconceived notions. All these three can become detrimental if not guided properly. Senses. How does the senses causes this trouble? We saw that. We quoted that Viveka Chudamani verse and other verses to in the Mahabharata verses to say how the weakness for one sense can be dangerous. All five senses can be extremely dangerous. Second is the mind. The mind itself has its own weakness. The third one is the preconceived notions and ideas. So in the hierarchy, if you see, easily manageable are the senses, more difficult than the senses are the emotions, more complicated than the emotions are the preconceived notions. Since all these three, since all these three are disturbing, that disturbance is because of attachment. And what will help a human being to get out of this attachment? The natural protection given to the human being is the intellect. That's the conclusion. So the problem is discussed. And what is the solution? Solution is the intellect, which is the natural protection. By natural protection, what is meant is there is a potential to grow, to develop, and make it strong. That is what is meant by natural protection here. When we say natural protection, it is not available to you without you making any effort. So when we say natural protection here, what is meant is the potential instrument is there, and the knowledge is there, and the effort is there. When all three are made effective use of it, you will be protected. Again, I repeat, three things are there. One is the instrument intellect is there. Second is the knowledge is available. The third one is the effort that you can make. When all these three are done together, you are protected from attachment. You are saved from this attachment. Okay. What happens if you get saved from attachment? There is an inner maturity. That inner maturity is required for deeper contemplation, meditation, self-realization. So, Holocaust of attachment we are studying for what? Not to have a peaceful mind. Because in Vedanta, the goal is not a happy, peaceful mind is not the goal. Why? Why? You can have a goal that is possible and achievable. There is no such thing called happy mind, a peaceful mind. It's a hope of the human being. Again, you should understand this. There is no, you can never have a goal of happy, peaceful mind. It doesn't exist. But all of us are trying only for that. No, you may be trying for that. But whether does it exist or not? No, it doesn't exist. Therefore, there is no such thing called a happy, peaceful mind. Or a happy, peaceful mind is the mind that has got no attachments, which is fully disciplined. It means happiness comes from not the mind. Happiness comes from discipline and control and detachment. How to get into the state? Potential is there. What is the potential? Instrument is given, the intellect instrument. In the very introductory class itself, we saw intellect is a potential, just as muscles are potential. Nobody is born with muscle. Everybody is born with the potential for muscle. More you exercise it, more it becomes strong. If you do not exercise it, it doesn't become strong. Therefore, first thing that we understand here is what? Intellect as an instrument existing in a potential form. If that intellect is not guided by the shastras, then what will guide it? Intellect is a simple reasoning, discriminating faculty. If shastra is not guiding that, what will guide that by default? The mind will guide. That's the poem Pond. That's the poem Pond, where if the shastra is not heeded to, if the shastra is not listened to, by default, whether you like it or not, whether you understand, accept it or not, the mind will be guided by, so the intellect will be guided by the shastras only. Shastra guides, you are okay. If shastra doesn't guide, it will be guided by the mind. And what is mind? In one simple sentence. Venkat, correct கேட்கறது இல்ல? Okay. Because what is day for you is night for me. Yeah, you are all enlightened, I am not enlightened. Yeah. In the Bhagavad Gita, he says, no. Yanisha sarvabhutanam sanisha pashyato munehe, he says. What is day is night. So you are all sitting in the day and we are sitting in the night here. So that's why I'm asking. கேட்கறதில்ல correct? Okay. Now the question, what is mind? Mind is a hope. Mind is an expectation. That's what mind is. What is the hope? What is the expectation? Always only sukham and no dukkham. This is mind. Again, I repeat. What is mind? Always only sukham. Under all circumstances, Under every circumstance, there should be only Sukham. Under all circumstance, under no circumstance, there should be Dukkha. Pleasure and pain, that's all. Sukham means pleasure, Dukkha means pain. That's why people say even death should happen without pain, no? Isn't it? Anayasa marana, they say, no? Even death should happen. Even before you know what is happening, you should die. Because the problem is not dying. The problem is the pain. So what is the mind? So from this, what you understand as the mind? Two things you understand. What is it? It is only Sukham and no Dukkam. And it tries through the senses, through the mind, through worldly knowledge and understanding, it tries to get this. So wherever this is not catered to, it is disturbed. Wherever Sukham goes and Dukkam comes, the mind gets disturbed. This disturbance of the mind, what it does, it doesn't stay disturbed, it doesn't stop and stay quite disturbed, no. First it will get disturbed and then it will do something to get out of the disturbance. First it will get disturbed and then it will do something to get out of the disturbance. Where knowledge, shastra, Vedanta comes in is what justification, what reasoning you give to your actions and the choices that you think it is going to get you out of your disturbances. Are you able to connect now? The mind gets disturbed and it will do anything to get out of the disturbance. In order to get out of the disturbance, it has to execute some choices and it has to execute some actions. Where does trouble come from? The reasoning it gives to justify those choices and actions. The question is on what is the basis of this reasoning? What is the basis of this reasoning? Invariably, the basis of the reasoning comes from the mind. Mind means core to Sukham and avoid Dukkha. Anything that gives you a hope of happiness, you'll get attached to it. Anything that gives hope of happiness, you'll get attached. Supposing if this classes gives you a hope, you'll get attached to this classes. After a while, you will realize what? Okay, nothing is happening. You've been listening, 20 years listening, 30 years listening. Yeah. Prasad is 40 years listening. And he's smiling also, isn't it? 40 years listening. A hope for happiness comes and the hopes keeps it alive. At some point of time, it doesn't give you what the hopes doesn't get fulfilled. What will happen to the mind? The mind will shift. This constant shifting of the mind shows there is no intellect. This shifting, and for every shift, there will be a reasoning to it. For every time the mind shifts, there will be a reasoning. Just as all those who divorce has a reason for their divorce, no? We are not saying don't divorce, huh? Please, Shailesh. Yeah, I'm not planting ideas. Bhavana is sitting next to you, poor thing. Yeah. Everyone will give a reason for the shift, the change. It doesn't matter whatever the reason is. The truth is, it is lack of intellect. But sir, if it is a Ravana, what to do? If it is Rama, it's okay. If it is a Ravana, what to do? If it is Krishna, it is okay. If it is a Duryodhana, what to do? As long as this dilemma doesn't come, we are all okay, no? But these kind of dilemmas will come, and this dilemmas test your strength of the intellect. That's what we are discussing now. It is these dilemmas that test the strength. That is why we discuss the example of Mandodari. Remember Mandodari? Mandodari is Ravana's wife. And they give the list of virtuous women. In the list of virtuous women, she is number one. Mandodari is there, Sita is there, Draupadi is there, all of them are there. Sita and all is not a big deal. You have a husband like Rama, what is the problem of being a Sita? You have a husband like Ravana, and to be Mandodari is intellect. That's what internal strength is all about. Otherwise, the strength is always borrowed, dependent. Actually, borrowed strength, dependent strength is no strength. It is one's own inner state. And what is one's own inner state means? Where the senses are disciplined, the emotions of the mind are guided, the preconceived notions were all mercilessly, fearlessly thought about and eliminated. Then there is a powerful intellect. Or this is what is meant when we say a human being should have an intellect. The poem Pond talks about it. Before you go to the poem Pond, we will see the concept behind it. So, what is this intellect? That's why I keep saying every other class. Even Brahman is very clear, but what this intellect never becomes clear. It's easy to understand what Brahman is, but very difficult to understand what they mean by, what does the shastra mean by buddhi? What does buddhi in Sanskrit is, buddhi in English is called intellect. And what is this intellect? The intellect is the penetrating capacity. That penetrating capacity. The capacity to see the invisible in the visible. What you see is visible, and there is something hidden in that. That is called intellect. That is called knowledge. What is knowledge? Knowledge is that which reveals what was there already. Able to understand the definition of knowledge? Again, I repeat. Knowledge means it reveals that which is already there. It is already there, but it is not visible. It is there and not visible. And the instrument is there for you to go beyond the visible and understand what it is. Therefore, what is this knowledge? Nature protects. In the case of the other species protection, that protection is in relation to an embodiment. In that embodiment, it is well protected. Nothing before, nothing after. In the case of a human being, the intellect is the protection that continues even onto the next, onto the next, till you attain moksha. In all other species, it is an embodiment protection. And I say embodiment protection means protection for survival, which is not protection at all. Because here it is that which got to take you to the It is that which got to take you to the next level. What is it when we say it got to take you to the next level? Understand the areas of attachment and how that attachment brings about your destruction. Because the areas of your attachment is your destruction. Now, the area of your attachment will not cause destruction to me because I am not attached to it. My area of attachment will cause destruction to me, but not to you. Why? Because you aren't attached. Every day the statistics will say there are all over the world, even without the pandemic, there will be 600, 700,000 people dying every day. With the pandemic, maybe numbers will increase to another few more lakhs, few 100,000. So, in a day, there are 700,000, 800,000 people dying. Does that affect? It doesn't affect, no. It doesn't affect at all. Why? Nothing of yours is in that. You have no investment in them. Wherever you have an investment, that's wherever you have an investment is the area of your suffering. So, what is attachment? Attachment is an investment. What is the investment? Hope for happiness. That's what attachment. Attachment is a kind of investment. You put something hoping that you are going to get a return. And life tells you very clearly what? Even if you go to Harvard and Stanford and best universities and get a degree also, all your investments will cause nashta at the end. What is the nashta? Agamapayanaha anityaha. It's not a nashta. Agamapayanaha anityaha is not a nashta. That is the reality. The mind is hoping something against this reality. Agamapayanaha, they come and go. Agamapayano nityaha tam titikshasva bharata. Verse number 14, chapter 2. They come and go. Even when they come and go, they are impermanent. Therefore, the nature is not causing stress. Mind not matured enough to accept the reality is that which causes stress. So the presence of the object is not stressful. You not understood exactly what it is and what it can give and what it cannot give is the stress. But the mind has done a lot of investment. And what is the investment? Mind is the investment. Venkat. My class and rather investment. Fear. Yeah. Everybody, Venkatachalam. I was very disheartened. When I was leaving, I told people that I'm going for a few weeks, but classes I'll continue. No, sir, don't take classes. I thought people will say, even midnight take classes. I thought, okay, don't take classes. Why? Because it's not good for you. Now I understood, okay. For the punishment only, I said, wherever I go, I'll do class now. That's it. Even midnight means I will wake up and why? Fear, Venkat. 6 வாரம் விட்டு போனா after 6 weeks I don't know who will come. So just to keep the flock together, you have to keep doing weekly brainwash. Yeah, attachment. Yeah, isn't it? Teju, right? No. Wherever you have an investment, what is the investment? This is going to give me sukham. This is going to avoid me from dukkam. This is going to give me happiness. This is going to take me away from sorrow. This is the investment. invariably this intellect will come and say, don't do this investment in relation to the world. Why? There's nothing wrong with the world. The nature of the world is agamopayinaha anityaha. Since this being the nature of the world, it is out of your foolishness you will invest there. So intellect says, this is how it is. Mind says, change it, no? This is what world is. What will the mind say? Mind will say, change it. Change the anitya into nitya. So what is the cause for human problem? Somehow desperately trying to make the impermanent permanent. If not make it permanent, at least make it longer, no? At least keep it for a longer period of time, no? Okay. Anyway, we all will die, but at least 110 years we can live and die, no? The mind hope is for what? It will not accept the reality, it will want to change the reality. What is intellect now? Okay. What all we call as mind, intellect is opposite of that. Understand it like that. It becomes easy to follow. What all we call as mind, what is intellect? Exactly the opposite. So what does the mind do? The mind tries to change, to keep the impermanent permanent. All human actions ultimately end in a disappointment is because of ultimately end in this disappointment. What is the disappointment? The unreal, the temporary can never be made permanent. The temporary will be temporary. But sir, if we keep talking like this, how we will grow? Then how we will grow? Vedanta turns back and says, define growth. What do you call as growth? From bullock cart to motorcycle, the growth. From motorcycle, the car, growth. From car to the private jet, to the growth. But we have to grow in life, no? Intellect will ask this question, define growth. And when you define growth, it has to be in the area of something permanent in it. Growth cannot be again within the parameters of impermanent. All human efforts appear to be a failure, appear to be a disaster, appear to be very hurtful because hot ice cream. That is what growth is. Are you able to follow? Manohar, purida? Hot ice. Cold coffee, isn't it? That is what growth is. What is that? Change the basic nature. If you can change the basic nature, you have attained something, you have achieved something. Vedanta comes and says, it is so delusory, it is so illusory for you to believe that you can change the nature. What is the nature of the world? That's why 3-4 verses I keep repeating. Every other class I repeating 3-4 verses, because these are all the formula verses, and if you remember those formula, rest you can know by yourself. When this pleasant and unpleasant happens, what does one do? When pleasant comes, practice titiksha. When unpleasant comes, again practice titiksha. That's all. No, sir. Pleasant means indulge and throw a party. Unpleasant means practice titiksha. No, titiksha is a common practice for what? Agamapayinaha anityaha. Agamapayinaha anityaha is what we read in the poem, even this shall pass away. The best of the things come and they pass away. The worst of the things they come and pass away. In and through this best and worst, the intellect recognizes there is something deeper than this. Even though at one level of penetration it understands all this is agamapayana anityaha, but then it also understands something. What? There is something deeper than that. In order to go into the deeper, the first layer has to be cleared rightly. Oh, the first layer has to be cleared. What is clearing the first layer properly? Clearing the first layer properly means an indication. What is the indication? You are free from attachment. And what is freedom from attachment means? Freedom from attachment means freedom from preconceived notions. This freedom from preconceived notions is what is technically called freedom from conditioning. That preconceived notion is a conditioning. So freedom from preconceived conditionings, freedom from the fluctuations of the emotions, and keeping the senses under control. And we have seen what is keeping the senses under control. We are not going into that analysis again. What is meant by control is guidance. In Vedantic language, control means guidance. Does law control you or does law guide you? Ask yourself this question. Law is there to control you or is law there to guide you? If it is not suiting you, it is controlling. Law is not meant for controlling. Law is meant for guidance. So, since law is meant for guidance, not for controlling, you understand it like this. You follow now? What is the law? The law of a human life is the intellect should be the guiding factor. The law of life is intellect should be the guiding factor. If the intellect isn't there, what happens? Now comes the poem pond. No reasoning or wrong reasoning. No reasoning means like is the only reason to do something. That's what people today believe in. In order to do something, there has to be only one reason. What? Simply like it. When likes changes, because there cannot be a permanency to any like, it will change. When like changes, what do? Obviously, sir, where is the problem? You also change. So, to do anything, to make a choice, the only determining factor that people believe is like. So, that is no reasoning. That is no reasoning. And second is what is wrong reasoning? Since you feel very childish to behave like this, you give some justification to it. That is wrong reasoning. Why are you eating this? Child say, I just like it. What is your problem? Adult feels very difficult to say. So therefore, what will they do? They will come up with some reasoning. Of the two, the great danger is the reasoning. The wrong reasoning is the great danger. Why the wrong reasoning is a great danger? The mistake you do is not the problem. The reasoning that you give to justify the mistake is what makes it problematic. Are you able to follow? Making a mistake isn't a problem. For everybody makes, there's mistake is falling down, mistake and all is part of it. But where comes the problem? When you start giving reasoning to justify the mistakes, that becomes a valid reason to continue the mistake. That's the vicious trap. So the poem Pond talks about both. No reasoning and wrong reasoning. Of the two, I would say, the wrong reasoning is more dangerous than no reasoning. How would you say that? That's where Josh Billings comes in. Josh Billings comes and says the trouble with most folks is not their ignorance, as their knowing so many things which ain't so. So the wrong reasoning becomes a major problem than no reasoning, and very difficult to get out of the wrong reasoning because it is an attachment at the level of the intellect. It's an attachment at the level of the intellect, attachment to ideas and ideologies, values, whatever be it. And what is the role of the intellect? The role of the intellect is to witness all this and see if anything there is evolutionary in it, take it. If there is nothing evolutionary in it, leave it. That is the role of the intellect. In order to decide whether it is evolutionary or not, first you have to have 2 steps back. The 2 steps back, what can take the 2 steps back? Intellect guided by the shastra can take the 2 steps back and look at your own conditionings, look at your own emotions, look at your own senses, and then take an appropriate decision. This is what is explained in the poem Pond. So first thing, what the story. The story, we all know the pond story. I am remarkably fond of water. That's all. Don't ask any questions after that. I am remarkably fond of water. Now use your intelligence and tell me how to. Now use your intelligence and tell me how to get it. Don't come and tell me. Don't go into water advice I don't want. Isn't it? This is where you'll be very happy with the consultant. With Vedanta, you'll be unhappy only eternally. Why? To a consultant, you go, you'll be very happy. Why? The consultant will agree first. He'll say, yes, I will get you. And then he will make a plan. And then he'll make a program. Sometimes he works, sometimes he may not work. But still you'll be happy with him. Why? Why? Because he fundamentally agrees with you. Vedanta, you cannot be happy at all. Why? Because it doesn't agree with you at all. Anything you say, I like it, it will say, leave it. I don't like it, that also leave it. If you say, I like it, leave it. But I don't like it. So it doesn't matter whether you like or dislike. Leaving is the message here. What is leaving? Going 2 steps backward and seeing it objectively. When you take 2 steps back and look at it objectively, you understand that you have been unnecessarily carrying something. And because of this baggage, you are not able to do what you are supposed to do also. What is unnecessary baggage? If you want to understand unnecessary baggage, you have to read, you have to understand what Ramatirtha says. Ramatirtha says it very beautifully. What is unnecessary baggage? He says, unnecessary baggage means a person who was sitting in the train with the luggage on his head. Remember that story? A person in the train is sitting with the luggage on his head. So the co-passenger said, why don't you take it off and put it? Why are you carrying it on your head? For which the man said, what did the man say for that? I don't want to burden the train more. As it is, the train is carrying my weight. Now I don't want to burden the train more by putting the luggage on the train. Therefore, I am carrying it. Vedanta said, whether you like it or not, the train was carrying anyway you and the luggage. But the ego makes you to believe like that. That's attachment. The ego makes you to believe like that. The deadly attachment is the attachment to the ego, the preconceived notions. Remember the Panchatantra story? The fly and the elephant? In the evening, the fly, this is the story. Just 4 lines. You know Panchatantra story. No, it doesn't go into pages and all. 4 lines, 5 lines, that's all. So in the evening, the fly spoke to the elephant. If you are tired, tell me, I will fly away. It means what? The fly has been sitting on the elephant from the morning. And obviously, the elephant will be tired carrying the fly the whole day. Obviously, it will be tired. So, as a matter of compassion to the elephant, the fly said, if you are tired, tell me, I will fly away. Elephant turned back and said, now that you spoke, I recognize you are sitting on me. That's all the story ends. Elephant said, now that you spoke, I recognize you are on me. It means what? The ego of the fly is so big that it can become a burden to an elephant. Wrong reasoning. No reasoning or wrong reasoning. Of the two, the wrong reasoning is more problematic than no reasoning at all. Why? Wrong reasoning is where you have done to yourself so many times and you have actually started believing in that. You have done this, you have spoken to yourself so many times again and again and again, and you have kind of developed a conviction of that. Now if Vedanta comes and says, get over it, it is difficult to, that attachment is difficult to get over. That's why Josh Billing says, that attachment is much stronger than the other two attachments. Nevertheless, there are 3. What are the 3? Senses, emotions, preconceived notions. Example of preconceived notion is religious fanaticism. What is example of preconceived notion? Religious fanaticism is an example of the preconceived notion. That's why, again, to quote Ramatirtha, he says, all religions talk about peace and love, and all wars are fought in the name of religion. So, intellect is that which understands no reasoning, wrong reasoning, and then comes to the right reasoning. Now, what is right reasoning? And who decides this is right reasoning? What is right reasoning? And who decides this is right reasoning? Obviously, sir, where is the problem? I am that one. For everybody, they are the one. Tasmat shastram pramanam te karya vyavastitau. So, in order to get over all these attachments, shastra must be taken as the praman. Shastra must be taken as an authority. And shastra says all these preconceived notions, these sukha and dukkha and senses looking for instant gratifications, all that is because it is unguided, and because it is unguided, that lack of guidance is the destruction. Senses doesn't cause destruction. Emotions doesn't cause destructions. Ideas and ideologies doesn't cause destructions. Unguided is, they not being guided is the cause for destruction. Then the deepest problem is, who is that guide? In this Vedanta classroom, Aparna, you have no choice. Vedanta becomes the guide, isn't it? In this classroom, we obviously know we are the guide. Vedanta is the guide. Tasmat shastram pramanam te. And what does Shastra say? The presence of the other is not the cause for problem. Your attachment is the cause for problem. The cause for problem is not the presence. The cause for problem is your attachment. Wrong reasoning is to say the presence is the problem. Since presence is the problem, what is the solution? It's easy, no? If you say presence is the problem, then what is the solution? Get rid of it. Problem is solved. You follow? This is wrong reasoning. Vedanta comes and says the presence of the other is not the problem. Why? Because world will necessarily have a variety of presence. Infinite variations will be there in the world. You cannot change it. You cannot change it. Why? Because this is the nature of, this is the reality of the world. By nature we mean reality. So the reality of the world is there will be variety of, there will be infinite variations that will be present. So the presence of the other, if it is a problem, solution is very easy. What? Either you get rid of them or you run away. Either way, problem is solved. If the other is the problem, if the presence of the other is the problem, Shastra comes and says the presence of the other is not a problem. What is the problem? Your attachment. And what is attachment? Attachment means all your hopes for happiness is on that. That is what attachment is. What is attachment? Your hopes of happiness is on that. If your hopes of happiness is on God, God will become the source of your attachment. If the source of happiness is on wealth, wealth will be the source of your attachment. If it is on some human beings, that human beings will become the source of your. What is attachment? In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we saw that in the introduction. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, he discusses that. He asks, Yajnavalkya asks this question to Maitreyi. Remember that we did this. Yajnavalkya decides to divide the wealth into two. And he gave away the wealth to both the wives. Actually, he wasn't intending to give the wealth. He was checking who's interested in this knowledge. He's not giving the wealth. He's checking who's interested in this knowledge. If somebody is interested in the knowledge, some questions will be asked. If nobody is interested in the knowledge, they will take the wealth and go. So he was checking who will ask. Katyayani didn't ask. Maitreyi asked. Will anybody leave something valuable if they don't have anything more valuable? That's the first question she asks. If you are leaving this which is very valuable, It means unless you have something more valuable than this, why will you leave this? Isn't it? From Kumbakonam, you will come to Chennai, no? From Chennai, you will go to Srikanth. From Salem, you will come to Chennai. From Chennai, you will go to Mumbai. From Mumbai, you will go to Dubai. From Dubai, final destruction. Where? What is this place? California, Los Angeles. The final destruction is this place. You come here, that's it. Will anybody go in the reverse way? Imagine somebody going from LA to Kumbakonam. What will you call that person? Ram Subramaniam. Something wrong with them, no? So Maitreyi is asking Yagyavalkya, if you are leaving this and going, that something must be more valuable than this. No, what is that? But Maitreyi, that is very difficult to get. It's very difficult to get it. No, I want that. What is that? That I cannot tell you in one word. I have to teach you. You wanted to teach only. Yeah, that I cannot tell you in one word. I have to teach you. Okay, I'm ready for the teaching. I'm ready for the session. Om Sahana Votalla started. And then the question. I am dear to you, no, Maitreyi. I am Priyam to you, no. I am dear to you, isn't it? She says, of course, yes, you are dear to me. Why am I dear to you? What makes me dear? What is it that is making me dear to you? Right? It's so obvious, no? If I say stand up, you stand up. If I say sit down, you sit down. Where is the difficulty? This is what makes you dear to me. What you call as dear is not because I am dear to you. You are calling me dear because something of yours is getting fulfilled through me. When that something of yours is getting fulfilled through me, you will call it as Priyam, and that Priyam is called attachment. That's where the famous Upanishadic mantra. And Ramtirtha quotes this mantra in the lecture, How to Have a Happy Married Life. The topic of discussion is how to have a happy married life. If you want to understand how to have a happy married life, his advice is listen to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Why? Because there only he says very clearly, the husband is not dear for the sake of the husband, but for the sake of the self in the husband. The wife is not dear for the sake of the wife, but for the sake of the self in the wife. So big paragraph, about 27 items he will list out in that. And then finally he concludes, what is Priyam? What is Priyam? The self. Wherever anything that is meaningful, harmonious, pleasant, blissful, it is Brahman. In that sense, wherever you see any happiness, that happiness is not coming from the object or from the person, that happiness is coming because the Swabhava is bliss. That is one interpretation, which is what we would actually want to understand. If this is too much to understand, we go the other way. What is the other way? When you say, I like something, when you say, I love something, you are not really liking that, or you are not in really love with that. You are in love with yourself, and They are supporting that. You are in love with yourself and they support that. Whoever supports that, you say, it's love. Brihadaranyaka says, Vedanta says, that is not love, that is called attachment. That is not love, that is called attachment. Why? Because it is priyam, because either it is pleasant to your senses, or it is pleasant to your emotions, or it is in conformity with your preconceived notions. Since it is in conformity with your preconceived notions, or this, or the, you say it is priyam. In this, what is the real priyam? That we already saw in the thesis on God. The real priyam comes from the self. That which is priyam is the self. That which is happiness is the self. That which is beneficial is the self. There is nothing else. And this original nature of Brahman is hidden. Intellect helps you to remove all the layers of covering. If this bliss of Brahman is directly available, then there is no need for knowledge, because you already know it. To a knower of Brahman, you need not come and teach all this. No. It means what? This is where knowledge comes. Now, remember the definition of knowledge. What is the definition of knowledge? It is there but covered. It is there but covered. That's why knowledge doesn't produce anything new. Knowledge doesn't create anything new. Knowledge is that which reveals, which is already there. You follow? Knowledge is that which reveals that which is already there. So what is already there? What is it that is already there? Brahman is that which is already there. You don't know it. Why? No reasoning, or because of no reasoning or wrong reasoning, the mind is attached. And that attachment acts like a covering, doesn't help you to see the reality. Therefore, what the intellect does, again understand, intellect is not going to give you Brahman. Intellect, the job of the intellect is not Brahman. The role of the intellect is not Brahman. What does intellect do? Remove the layers. Atma Bodha example, the lamp that is covered by the pot. The lamp that is covered by the pot. So what does they do? The pot is, the intellect removes the pot. The light which is there is revealed by itself. So what is the function of the intellect? Don't say function of the intellect is to reveal Brahman. The function of the intellect is to remove the coverings. And what are the coverings? Three coverings. The senses, the emotions, the preconceived notions. All these three acts as covering the light. So when this is removed, light is revealed. It is not that the light isn't there. It is there. It is not that the light isn't there even now. Even now, the light is there. Even now, when you say you are in sorrow, who is saying I am in sorrow? See, all this we studied, no? In thesis on God, you should remember all this. Wherever the recognition of I happens, Brahman is already there. That I, Brahman comes first, and then the appendixes come later. Body am I, mind am I, intellect am I. Will you say that? The I has to come first in order to go and associate itself with something. So the associated object doesn't come first. What comes first? The I that comes first. The I that comes first is the reality. What intellect does, it makes sure that the other, in terms of the body, the mind, the intellect, doesn't. You do not attach yourself to that and say, I am. You can say there is the body, but you should not say, I am the body. Or you can say, I possess a body. You can say that. You can say, I possess the body. You can say, I possess the mind. You can say, I possess the intellect. If you say, I possess the body, I possess the mind, I possess the intellect, it means the possessor and the possessed are different. When you say, I am the body, you have become the body. When you say, I possess the body, they are different. Now, what is intellect? The second thing is intellect. Intellect says, I possess. I possess the body. I possess the mind. I possess the intellect. Who is this I? That is the subject matter of contemplation. Who am I? That's where anybody who goes with any problem, Ramana will say, find out who you are. You come back saying, I know who I am. Problem is not, uh, I have never forgotten myself. For me to find out who I am, isn't it, Aparna? You have never forgotten yourself to find out who I am. But then if you go to Ramana Maharshi, he will say, find out who you are. Find out who you are. That who am I is not a question. Please understand that. Who am I is not a question for you to find an answer. Who am I is an indicator of what you should not associate with. Again, because of the preconceived notions, who am I becomes a question and answer also will be given. Isn't it? In this classroom, if I were to ask, Kolattur, who am I? Who are you? What is the answer? I am Brahman. Correct. Who am I? I am Brahman. The question is correct. The answer is also correct. And it doesn't bring any transformation to the one who's giving this answer. Why? Because again, this who am I is not a question. Who am I is a subject matter of contemplation. To say Neti, Neti, Neti. And it is the intellect that keeps saying Neti, Neti, Neti. And finally, the instrument that says Neti itself becomes Neti. What is the intellect that says Neti? What is the instrument that says Neti, not this? The intellect. Okay. But everything goes, but intellect is remaining there, no, finally. No, you need not worry. That intellect also becomes Neti. Upanishad gives a beautiful example. Later on, we give the example of thorn removing the thorn. Intellect is the thorn removes another thorn. Upanishad gives a beautiful example. The example of the Upanishad gives is the wood that is used to stir the the crematorium, when the body is burning, they keep it. They have to keep the fire alive. No, if you don't keep the fire alive, it will die away and the body will be half burnt. So what they do, they use a wood. The wood that makes the body gets burnt, finally gets burnt by itself. Beautiful example the Upanishad gives. What is intellect? Intellect is like the wood that is used to do. The intellect is that wood. This is the Upanishad example. Nowadays, it's all the Upanishad examples are so outdated nowadays because electric crematoriums, where you get to see all this, isn't it? The fellow goes inside and comes out like that, Like the machine, it is happening nowadays, isn't it? In those days, we go to those flour mills. You put the rice on one side, what comes out the other side? The flour comes, the grains goes on one side, and what comes out? So inside the grinding process and all, we can't see. In those days, they were seeing that grinding process also. So what is that example? Intellect is like the wood. Intellect is like the wood that keeps the dead body getting burnt, and finally gets burnt by itself, because it's wood. So every time you use, little bit of it is getting burnt. So what is the role of the intellect? Nature protects. It is the one that is going to help you in that neti, 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 and in that neti, that also gets dissolved by itself. So in order to say neti finally, from the beginning, what you have to say? Neti only. That saying neti in the beginning is very painful, because the cherished senses, the valuable emotions, your preconditioned notions and ideas, taking it away one by one is like somebody eating you up while you are alive. Imagine your hand is pulled out when you are alive. One leg is pulled out when you are alive. That much of excruciating pain it gets. But that is the way, that is the way to grow, and that is the natural protection. This is the topic. Nature protects. To summarize it, what is attachment? 3 things causes attachment: senses, emotions, preconceived notions. And all this get justified either by no reasoning or wrong reasoning, by a powerful intellect, the intellect that is strengthened by the study of Vedas, Vedanta, is powerful enough to say neti, 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 and finally dissolves itself. That's how the person overcomes the attachment. With this, we conclude for today, and we'll continue from the next topic next week.
Yes, Mala has posted a question.
Oh, I never knew has a lot of fan following. Huh? Mala, what is Mala's question? If the swabhava is unpleasant, Mala Kerala? Yes, yeah, I can see. Mala, you have a lot of fan following, Mala. They are saying my answers are not good, but your questions are good. So what is her question for today? If the swabhava is unpleasant, what do we call that as? Should we understand as non-Brahman and simply pray? Who swabhava, Mala?
Sir, you said, whenever we experience a good swabhava, a pleasant swabhava, we should look at it as Brahman. That swabhava is Brahman, rather than getting influenced by that swabhava. So if such a swabhava of any happenings or any people or anything outside appears to be unpleasant to us, then how should we, obviously there is no Brahman in it. So how should we kind of understand? And
that's why people like you so much. You have already decided, obviously there is no Brahman in that. Yeah. Mala, Brahman only is pleasant and unpleasant, right and wrong and all is your mind fancy. It's a fancy of your mind, not real. What is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what is pleasant, what is unpleasant, and all belongs to the realm of the mind, not to the realm of Brahman.
Right.
Correct. She understood. It's the realm of your mind. Therefore, Swabhava is Brahman. Good and bad is instrument based. It is related to the instruments. Is it
Right.
okay, Mala?
Right. I mean, should then maybe, I mean, if still in our though we are not supposed to judge, in our analysis, if the situation is bad by the person, should I simply pray that let Brahman be present or let Brahman exhibit more to clear that person's habits or whatever, something like that? Should I pray and then simply leave it?
If you see anything like that, pray that you should learn to see it rightly. You need not pray for them. You got to pray for yourself.
Right.
If you see anything like this, pray for yourself. What is praying for oneself means? I need to get to a point where I don't get carried away by
Right.
its. Adults shouldn't get involved in children's fight. No. See, if there are two kids fighting, what should adult to do? Adults should not get into it. No, they should move away. Think they will grow one day. That's all. You follow what I'm saying? So, what Mala is asking is very simple. Venkat. அவங்கள சுத்தி swabhava, there is no one good swabhava she is seeing around her. Now, what to do with all that she is saying? I am saying the answer is not to see anything bad there. Learn to change your, pray for yourself so that your vision changes. What is the vision? What is the vision? There is an action, there is a consequence. Whoever is the karta will face the consequences of their actions, and you got nothing to do. You got nothing to do with it. That's all. Pray so that you gather the strength. Pray that you get the strength. Is it okay, Mala?
Absolutely. Brahma.
Oh, good, very good. Next.
Narayan has posted.
On 14th May, Holocaust of Attachment class, you mentioned happiness is in self-forgetting. Kindly explain. Yeah. All human beings' happiness that they are trying for now is nothing but a temporarily you want to forget yourself. Because remembrance of you is very painful to you. So what is happiness? Anything that can make you to forget yourself temporarily, that you believe as the source of happiness. That is why happiness, all human beings' sources of happiness is what helps them to forget themselves temporarily. I come for Vedanta class, sir. Why 1.5 hours? I need not remember anything. For as soon as the class is over, the whole thing comes back, isn't it? A person has a drink for what? A person has an alcohol for what? Forgetting. Even though they say for joy, what is the joy in it? Forgetting something that they are not able to forget. What is that something that everybody wants to forget? The sorrow. The sorrow I am in is what I want to forget. And what will give me freedom from that sorrow? Everybody finds out one method. Some will go to a temple, some will go to a disco, some will go for a movie. That's why they say, movie could, it should be happy, no, sir. If it is talking about all the miseries of what we are going now, why you will want to go and watch that in a movie again? So if you see the human beings' ways of seeking happiness, all happiness is in self-forgetting. That which makes you to become, that which helps you to forget temporarily. Vedanta beautifully calls it as Anandamaya kosha. Why is deep sleep so blissful? The deep sleep state is called Anandamaya kosha. Correct? Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, Anandamaya kosha. Bliss, it's a state of bliss, they say, not a bliss of self-realization. What is the bliss there?
No thought.
You aren't there. You aren't there. You not being there, the world not being there. That's what bliss is all about. So bliss means what? These two shouldn't be there. In the waking state and dream state, it is there. No, what do we do? So find something that will help me to temporarily forget. It can be right from a child eating a chocolate to watching a movie to a disco or going to a temple or a pilgrimage store or even going to an ashram, even Vedanta class. Anything can be used as a tool for self-forgetting, so that gives happiness. So that's what I said in that class. Happiness is, in self-forgetting, is a very wrong way of people knowing how to find happiness. That's not the right way. That's the wrong way of knowing happiness. And what is the right way of knowing happiness? It is not in acquiring something to become happy. It is recognizing that you don't need anything to be happy. Are you able to follow? Knowledge says you don't need anything to become happy. For happiness is not a becoming. Happiness should be, you are in it already. So we are coming to that point. Is it okay?
Okay. Act out of happiness, not seek happiness out of action.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Because seeking happiness is the problem. In Vedanta, you seek happiness is the problem. So the challenge is to recognize how you are happy already. It's nice to hear. It is nice to say. It is nice to hear. How does one recognize that? So Vedanta gives methods. By eliminating all that, you will end up in that. So by the technique, like even today I was mentioning in the last few minutes, Neti, 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 you end up there. Is it okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. One more.
Mala has. Sorry, Meera.
When I do something out of attachment, I feel happiness. Example, cooking for my kid. Why is he lying? Meera and cooking doesn't. Anyway, Meera and cooking doesn't go together. Anyway, that's example she's giving. When I do something out of attachment, I feel happiness. Example, cooking for my kid. When I do cooking as what I ought to do, then also I feel happy. So, how do I know the happiness I am feeling is of the right kind and not because of attachment? So, she's talking about two things. One is doing something out of attachment that gives happiness. Another thing is doing an obligation that also gives happiness. How to differentiate between the two? Meera, anything that is done out of attachment, it becomes a pain very soon. Anything done as your obligation, you will never get tired doing it. That's the only difference. If it is done as the duty and obligation, you will never get tired doing it. Till the last breath of your life, you will do it. If it is done out of attachment, the first doing will be very happy. The third doing will be very painful. The fifth doing, I will give the phone number, Zomato order. I will give, I say order. It's easy. You are also free, I am also free. You follow me there? Therefore, the right kind attachment brings about an excitement of happiness. Please understand the difference. Attachment brings about an excitement. Excitement is that which fatigues you. Excitement is that which tires you. That's why after doing, you will be very tired mentally. So attachment is that which causes excitement and fatigue. Obligation is that which you can do and do and do. There's no fatigue. And by fatigue, we mean the mental fatigue. You follow? The last one, Ranjini. Now I can courageously say I will not answer because I don't want her breakfast for today. No, dinner I've already finished. So I can courageously tell no answer for your questions, no answers. Because 4 weeks later I have to go back only. No. So might as well I give the answer. So she is asking, still unable to understand what is the self in self-forgetting. Very good. The self here is the pain, the sorrow, the misery. You follow? Ranjini, நான் சொல்றது புரியுறதோ இல்லையோ? The self here means the pain, the sorrow, the misery is the self. So self-forgetting means freedom from the sorrow, freedom from the misery, freedom from the pain. So here self means this. So anything that gives you freedom, the mind will want it, the mind will get addicted to it. The mind will get attached, the mind will get addicted. Is it okay?
So is that called dukkha nivritti and sukha prapti?
No. Dukkha nivritti.
Self-forgetting is dukkha nivritti and sukha prapti.
No, only dukkha nivritti.
Oh.
Sukha prapti is positively courting something. You follow? Sukha prapti is different. Dukkha nivritti is different. Most of the time, we misunderstand dukkha nivritti will end up in sukha prapti.
Yes.
That's the wrong reason.
Oh.
Are you able to follow?
Mm-hmm.
The wrong reasoning is I misunderstand. If I keep eliminating the dukkha, I will end up in sukham. No.
Mm-hmm.
That is why, because of this wrong reasoning only, people indulge in all the things that will help them self-forget. It's a wrong reason. So, what is Sukha Prapti then? Sukha Prapti is not wanting to avoid dukkha, but wanting something. Variety. I have Alfonso mango, but then I feel, why not try Imam Pasand? Why not try Banganapalli? Sukha Prapti it is. You follow? Dukkha nivritti is not having it at all. The wrong reasoning, which is what he calls in the book as wrong reasoning. Is it clear? Yeah. Venkat, avladana? One more is there. Huh? Yeah. Yes.
Yes, sir. There's one question I have. It's more of a comment. You talked about the mind. So the mind, like the very, very popular metaphor, like the screen on which everything is being played. We should be like the screen without getting affected or being in any way affected by the movie that is, or this whatever that is being played. That's finally,
yes.
The mind will register because that is its function that we cannot stop registering.
Exactly.
But we should stay muted or neutral.
Yeah, correct. See, registration should happen and I should be standing apart and witnessing it.
Witnessing it.
Yeah, it is a witnesser that should decide. We don't allow the witnesser to decide. We just get involved in it. So first step is to turn into a witnesser and then let the witnesser decide. Now we don't even know that we have to witness it first. We rush into decision making. That is a mistake. So what we are doing now is first to stand apart, be a witnesser first, and allow the witnesser to decide.
Decide.
Don't decide first and torture the intellect to give justifications for the decision made.
So wherever we have an obligation,
Yes.
we react. Otherwise, keep quiet or remain as a witness.
Everywhere, including your obligations, first remain as a witness and then decide it is your obligation and do.
If it is an obligation. Yeah.
Yeah, first be a witnesser and then let the witnesser decide, is it an obligation? And if the witnesser decides it is an obligation, you should die doing it.
Yes.
If the witnesser says no, whatever be it, you should be able to say no.
Yeah.
Are you able to follow, Venkatachalam?
Thank you.
That's how it works. Seriya?
Yeah.
Yeah. With this, we conclude for today. We continue next week.